That's my phone ringing there. Okay. My name is Vladan Joler, and I'm director of Share Foundation. I just want to make a little survey now, and just to start with the opening conversation between people who are on the stage and people who are in public. And my question is, how many of you didn't pay the ticket this year? Please raise the hand. Okay, you owe me a beer. Or something else, because that's a bit too much. It can be a hug, it can be something else. Okay.
I just want to say that last couple of months were really, really crazy. And the thing that we are most proud of, it's that we have managed to pull off the program without any compromise, and even more direct and subversive than last year. But maybe more important than that is that you have helped us build a community that knows how to share and what's the importance of sharing. I mean, Share is here to be a platform for learning and inspiration for people in Serbia, but we are very, very proud that there are conferences happening in Sarajevo, in Skopje, in Zagreb, inspired by Share, and that's the thing both of us need to keep doing. And one more thing before we invite Peter Sunde as the first lecturer at Share 2. We want to show you a short funny movie.
Just a second. I want to say something else. Okay. What is really important for us is that we break this barrier. No, stop. Okay. That we break this barrier of perception of this conference as a product. Okay. That you should consume. And just want to assure you that Share, it's not a product. It's an idea. It's a concept. And I want to assure you that yes, everything will not be on time, okay? And maybe you will not get the printed version of the paper, maybe something else will happen, but I would like that all of us are together in this and to enjoy. And I want to also introduce one game. It's Hunt the Speaker. So whenever you see the person hanging something on the neck, try to ask him something or do something with him in the legal frame. Okay? Now we can play introduction video. And after this, Peter Sunde. Thank you. Yay!
microphones. So let me see if this works. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be back here. I was here last year, and it's just amazing being back in Belgrade. I really want to thank all of the organizers, because last year I was so happy about the conference, so this year I invited a lot of my friends, and I noticed that looks like half of them actually are on the panel this year, or doing something. I'm really happy about that, because this conference is really different to me. Oops, this is already starting. Look, I can write my name in one of the local languages almost. So instead of being weird and so on, I'll try and speak actually about normal things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, as I did last year as well, so you know who I am. My name is Peter. I'm Finnish, Norwegian, living in Sweden, Germany, traveling a lot, and I talk a lot about sharing. So for me, it's kind of obvious that I come to this conference to talk about sharing. I've been involved in a lot of groups that are working with sharing, like Piratbyrån, the Bureau for Piracy, which was founded in Sweden because we needed to talk about piracy and sharing and new technology and all of that. And it was very interesting because it was the remix itself, because there was a group in Sweden called Anti-Piratbyrån, which means the Bureau Against Piracy. And Piratbyrån essentially copied the name and took away the anti to remix it, to make it something better. And that's kind of been the spirit of sharing and the sharing movement in Scandinavia, is take something and make it better. We started lots of projects, and the project that probably made us most famous is the Pirate Bay, which is today the 19th biggest website in Serbia, which I'm really happy about. And it's still growing, and I'm really happy it's growing in Serbia, which is one of the biggest countries for Pirate Bay, actually. You're really good, I like that. So Pirate Bay became famous not because of the idea that we wanted people to share files, that was obvious, but it was the way we wanted people to share files, because it was a difference. It was not just technology. We didn't make the technology, we just used some technology that were available, but we made people think about why. And we had some sort of argument about it. And when we got letters saying that we shouldn't do this, particularly from American companies in Hollywood that were really upset about us, we replied in the way that they did when they sent them. So instead of shutting down the website when we got the threatening letter from them saying we're going to sue you for all the money in the world, we sent maps over the world showing where the US was and water, and then Europe, explaining that their laws does not apply in Sweden before they invade, which they usually do. But they still haven't. They just corrupted the system instead. This is one of my favorite letters that we replied with. It's a picture of a polar bear. And we said that, instead of talking about copyright and infringement and illegal file sharing, let's talk about how to get rid of polar bears, because they're eating us and they're trying to kill us. So we're scared of them, not copyright infringements. And it was really funny, because Pirate Bay was... we published all of these letters, and the people thought it was so funny, and that they started discussing if file sharing is good or bad. And we didn't really care about what they thought, just as long as they discussed it. And Pirate Bay became really, really huge. So, as you are not allowed to do in Scandinavia, I'm going to brag. So I'm going to get to a point with all of this. Sorry. But about 150,000 computers in any given second would try and find other computers in the world using Pirate Bay services to get some sort of sharing going. And that means the Pirate Bay is about 75% of all the BitTorrent traffic in the world. BitTorrent is a great technology for file sharing, where you connect to multiple computers to share the same file. So you don't have to download from one place, you can do it decentralized from lots of different places. And BitTorrent is very big. It's about 80% of the traffic in all of the cables, all of the fibers, all of the copper cables all over the world when it comes to internet, which means that Pirate Bay is over half of the traffic of the internet. So when we talk about traffic like YouTube is being big on the internet, they talk about web. They don't talk about the internet itself. It's a very limited selection. And Pirate Bay was never really more than 3 people at the core, and doing this for fun. And sometimes Pirate Bay could go down for a couple of days because someone was drunk and destroyed something, and half of the internet traffic vanished because that happened. And it's just a bizarre situation, which shows that if you just have the idea that you want to do something, you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of people. It never spent a lot of work on the Pirate Bay site itself. It looks the same today as it did 7 years ago, and it still works and it still grows. It's just because there's a need for the sharing. And the most important thing of all of this is that Pirate Bay has never been centralized. Even though the search engine itself is centralized, the data is not centralized. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because one of the things which is kind of interesting, maybe coming from me, is that we're doing everything wrong when it comes to this sharing thing. We're thinking the wrong way right now, because we've been struggling for quite a long while getting rid of the centralized media control. Before we had record companies, movie companies, all of these different companies that have been the people that decided our culture. Even people giving out grants, all of this, they controlled what we were thinking, what we were doing, and kind of the platform we were doing this on. And all of a sudden we have the internet, which allows us to do this in a different way. And I think that it's really important that we think that we have to go back to, sorry, this is the wrong slide. That's a different day. So we have the internet, which is totally decentralized, and the structure was built for the whole idea that we are supposed to talk to each other, not using central services, but we should copy files between each other, we should have our own services running, and it's very, very different right now. So I've been very involved in the copyright discussion about if it should be illegal or illegal to discuss or to file share things that are copyrighted. I don't really care if it's legal or not, because people are going to do it anyhow. But it's a very important discussion, because there's this guy called Mark Getty. He owns one of the biggest companies in the world that has photos. So most of the famous photos you would see in a newspaper that you've seen, he might hold the copyright for that. His company is really big. And he framed the term that copyright is the oil of the 21st century. And I don't really agree. I think that data is kind of the oil of the 21st century. And copyright is one way of controlling the data. So it's a controlling mechanism for this oil. And well, the really different thing right now than compared to before is that now everyone has access to the internet. Before, when it was the geeks that have access to the internet, we just built our own services. We ran them on our own computers. We didn't centralize the data. But right now we're centralizing everything, putting them on Dropbox. We're putting our our own web pages on WordPress. We're just doing all of these things which are not essentially good because it's centralizing the internet. So we have the perfect infrastructure, but we're using it the wrong way. And one thing we never talk about is what happens with this data. We just think that if I put my email on Gmail, that's fine, and it will be there. But who owns Google? Who runs Gmail? We don't talk about that. We don't talk about what will happen when someone buys Google. Maybe a Chinese government buys Google because they have money to do it. All of a sudden, all of our computers, all of our data would be there. And we're not doing it at all. And we have a problem because as the internet grows and our communication is centralized towards the internet, it becomes a target. So I think everyone in here has seen the big discussions about Protect IP and ACTA and the Data Retention Directive and all of this. The problem is that we are the people that are making this possible because we are all using the same services. So we are uploading our own files to Dropbox, which allows people to go to Dropbox and say, I want this person's files, instead of going towards us. Because every computer on the internet, it's its own node, so everyone has the same possibility on the internet. And we're doing it wrong all the time. There's also this thing that every central location, every data center ever has always leaked. In Sweden, for instance, there is never been one registry by the government, even if it's like a patient data, if it's databases of crimes, whatever, that's supposed to be secret or hidden or protected. None of them has ever not leaked. They are always leaking data, and that will happen. We don't talk about its leaks more than when we talk about WikiLeaks or OpenLeaks or these different sites and that help us with it. But leaking is also something that will affect us in our personal life. And I think it's kind of weird. I'm standing at a share conference talking about share less, because that's essentially what I want you to do. You should share in a different way. And the internet is built upon sharing, and it's, as I said, it's built for being decentralized. But still, all of the services we are building on top of right now even though you run your own computer, we're always running on some sort of centralized service, like the DNS structure. I don't know if you know about the DNS structure, so I'm going to tell you a little bit how it works. When you enter a domain name on your web browser or anything, there will be a certain server that your computer will ask, where will I find information, what this domain name will translate into as an address. This domain name system is controlled by the US government. That means if they feel like they're going to take over the Serbian top-level domain, they can do that because they have the control to do that. And this is core infrastructure that we don't need to have centralized like this, but we have never really done anything against it because nothing bad has happened. Until recently, because now the US government is trying to control this. They're trying to take over domain names outside of the US because they don't like what is happening. So internet is being more and more centralized, it's being more and more censored because it's being centralized. And we have a responsibility of not doing this. Because if you put your data on less centralized services, this will be a smaller target. And the censorship is also used for people who don't like censorship. TechDirt is a really interesting blog which writes a lot about internet rights and internet communication and file sharing particularly. They wrote a really important piece about the ACTA-SOPA discussion like half a year ago. And a company that didn't like what was written in there, they went to Google and said, we own the copyright for the things he's writing, which meant that he was kicked out of Google's search engine, so you couldn't find this document against censorship on Google anymore, which is really not a really good thing. But we don't really do anything about this. We're discussing SOPA, we're discussing ACTA, but we are not discussing our own responsibility. So these are the different types of networks we use on the internet. So we have the possibility of the decentralized, we have the possibility of the distributed, but we're going towards a centralized thing with Spotify, all of these things. And I work with file sharing and all of these things, but I also work with money because I run a different service called Flatter, which is a micropayment system. And we became famous because WikiLeaks got shut down from all of the big payment services last year. They were not allowed to receive money from Visa or MasterCard or using PayPal or anything like that. And in the end, they could only receive money using Flatter, which was not built for that purpose really, but it's possible. And we are probably still the only company in the world that allows WikiLeaks to get money online on the internet. And that's a really bad thing. And the thing we notice is that money has already been centralized to that position that you can't decentralize it, which means that we all have to be regulated. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but this is something we should know about so we don't let the same problem happen with the internet. Because the internet is going to be worse than money, because money is just like yes or no, but the internet is something that affects our everyday life. So when you put something on the internet and someone else controls it, you have that problem that you can't take it down. You can't do things that you should be able to do. You can't be drunk and put up a picture on the internet because it will be remembered. One of my favorite websites is 4chan, which the founder of 4chan, Chris, was supposed to come here, but he's not coming apparently, but he's going to be on video link later, and he's a really interesting guy. But they allow you to be anonymous. They want you to be anonymous when you post things on this website. So you can do really, really stupid stuff. You can try out, just smashing your face on a keyboard, see what happens, and post that. You don't have to do it under your own name, because it's built to be anonymous. Actually, I don't think you can even register and be non-anonymous on 4chan, which is a different way of thinking. And it's really good, because you can test things like, if you are gay and you want to come out, you can try it on 4chan and see what happens. If there's no problem, then there's no problem. At least you can test different personalities. It's really hard being gay on Facebook saying, hi, I'm gay, and then you retract it the day after. That doesn't really work. So that is a big problem. We also have the problem that we are storing things ourselves. So we talk about data retention, and European Union is passing the data retention directive, and we're upset about it, and we protest it. We go out in the street saying we don't want the government to store everything. But we are doing this ourselves as well. We're storing our own photos, we're storing everything that we see, and we just buy a bigger hard drive instead of, as we did before, just throw it away. I have so many photos on my computer from ages back, so I can see what everyone looked like. I can do, I can find information about people. I find old music that I made myself that is really crap, that I wish I'd forgotten because it's so bad. what we never forget anymore. As people, we're supposed to forget, but we don't do that. We have no natural selection anymore. I'm going to show you a small picture. This is some friends of mine. Two of these people are now successful CEOs. They don't want this picture to be shown. They don't have the control of it because they posted it on the internet. They tried taking it down, but it didn't work. I have a copy. I will still keep showing this, even though they will be upset. But this is not really good for their career, but it's really hard, like 5-10 years ago, to remember or understand that this will be a problem for you in the future. But if you had your own data, if you had your own social network on your computer, something like that, if you thought about that in those terms, maybe it would be easier for you to let yourself forget and other people not have the data. So we should not only talk about sharing, we should talk about how to share less. We should talk about how to share differently. And last year I remixed these letters, and I hate, I know that they hate when I do it, but I'm going to do it again because it's funny. I'm not going to do the same word as last year because that was a bad word. Ours, for those who don't remember. Let me see. I might break them, sorry. Look, you can remix letters. This is an I now. So, arise. So I want us to take back the control of our own data. So when you talk about sharing, think differently about it. So I actually like the name Think. Maybe you should have that next year. And so, to end this is a funny picture. We have the enemy, who is the governments and the bad people of the world. This is David Cameron and Gaddafi saying the same day that they want to shut down the internet. For different reasons, but the same concept. When you centralize data, the data point becomes a central point for censorship. It becomes a point of attack. And we don't want that. We want a free internet. And that means taking control over it again. So take back your data. Thank you. I have 3 minutes left. This is the first time I've been on time, even before. So next one, I think.